me. I will never pretend to be another. I will never want to be another. I will not change who I am just to fit in. Me.
Hold him, there's hardly anybody in today. I don't know what's going on. You walked out of it. Good morning, everybody. I must admit, I just have I'm very naughty, as some of you may have gathered, and I did say to Stephen out the back, I don't know where everybody is today. It's very quiet, and when he opened the door, he went, oh. And then he said another word, which is not a Sunday word. So welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so, you know what, this church amazes me. This church is everybody here today, and will be everybody here next week, and everybody here last week, because you are the ones that create this church. You are the ones bringing your energies in, bringing your thoughts, the community feel. People are welcomed, whether they've been here before or not, it matters not. It's your creation, and we are honoured to be able to work with the spirit world in bringing that together and giving the voiceless the voice. So today's demonstrator from Portsmouth, Mr. Stephen Mager.
Thank you.
It's been far too long. I think you were last here on the rally day, were you not? Yeah. Well, it's far too long. Stephen, we're looking forward to your work today.
Thank you.
Everybody, have a wonderful service. If you need to get up and leave, if little and create, absolutely fine. Don't worry. All right? Do not worry, seriously. Have a beautiful time. Stephen, over to you for the opening prayer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just join me for a few moments in the silence. Divine and gracious Spirit, who we call God, we thank you for bringing us all together this morning to invite our loved ones close, to demonstrate their survival in the spirit worlds, to show us that we're spirit beings living on earth, and that we are surrounded by our loved ones, our guides and helpers. And may we all be blessed with a healing touch this morning as well. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Stephen. And now, if you care to, please join in with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thine will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And leave us not when in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. And we now bring our thoughts, our hearts, our minds, our very intent together into and for the art and knowledge of healing. Healing is not a gift bestowed upon a few people. Healing does not require endless training or certification. Healing is just another expression of our most natural emotion, and that is love. When we send out our love and our thoughts to those that we know, those that we may not know, those that may even bring challenge to our lives, we are working within that energy of healing. So during this time, we invite you to send out your thoughts, your petitions for help, upliftment and comfort to wherever you are drawn. Be it the world, the environment, the animal kingdom, it matters not. You follow your heart. And we also invite you at this time, if there is anybody you feel in particular need of mention, just to simply raise your hand. And when you do, and I point to you, just simply call out their name. That is all that is needed. The intelligence of spirit knows best. So just relax and join in with this time of contemplation and of meditation. Thank you. Divine and infinite Spirit, God of our inch and individual own understanding, we thank you for this time of connection. We thank you for this time to exercise that God-given right to each and every one of us, to express that divinity within, and to work within those energies of love and healing. Amen. Now I'd like to hand over to Stephen for your reading and or address.
Please excuse my phone off. It's handy to carry everything around on. The reading I want to share with you today, it's I can't find who wrote it. I've been in the search engines, just comes up as anonymous. But it's a tale about the vineyard by Anonymous. There are many who go to the vineyard to answer the call of the Lord, with an eye not alone to the labour, but looking for earthly rewards. They will work with the zest near the highway, where those passing by can see, but would drop from the ranks in a moment if they were placed in obscurity. Yet the vines at the back of the vineyard were set out with equal care, and the Master has never forgotten how many he planted there. And the Lord who has called us to labour knows best what each man can do, so be quick to go out to the vineyard, though few may notice you. For the grapes at the back of the vineyard may grow on that precious stalk, that the Lord would not put near the roadside, where the thieves and the thoughtless walk. For the grapes at the back of the vineyard, and the place where he bids you to labour, may seem like a forsaken plot, but prove out in the plan of the Master a specially cherished spot. So go out to the place he's given, don't question the high decree, but be true to your task till the end of time, though few may know or see. When I was searching that up, because I heard it quite a few years ago, and it's associated with, apart from the Bible, about a parable about people working in the vineyard, and the owner of the vineyard sends his son to pay the wages, and the workers end up getting a short, rough end of the deal. And it's a sort of, it's a conversation about how we labour in vain, how sometimes all the work we do in life doesn't seem to amount to very much, and we wonder where all the sort of lessons in life have gone. But it's in that life that we learn our lessons. And I was doing loads of work on especially Christian theology, trying to work out what it all meant, especially as a spiritualist and what it means to us. And it was the word spirit that kept coming up, and looking it up in the dictionary and all the different meanings behind it. And one of them's about alcohol. And I thought that's going to be a fun subject to try and study. But why do we call alcohol spirits in the first place? And what's it got to do with the story of the vineyard? And really, these stories are given to us to think, when it comes to bread and wine in Christianity, these two things come from a transformational process through alchemy, and there's always an underlying meaning behind these stories. And when it comes to the grape, we discovered that adding yeast, we could turn grape juice into wine, making it last longer, store away in barrels. And through that process, it turns into something. It reveals a deeper character in the grape. And people quite interested by this. And they saw spiritual value in the story behind it. And being human beings, we're curious and we're not satisfied for very long. And someone decided to take that wine and fortify it, reducing the water content and also increasing the alcohol content, making it more pleasurable. But it was a way that they saw of extracting deeper character in the wine until you end up with sherry and martinis and fortified wines. But then we take it another step further, because being curious, we think there's more lying behind the grape. If we've got these fortified wines out of it, what else lies beneath it? And so they carried on distilling this wine until we ended up extracting the essence of it, extracting the alcohol, leaving behind all the sort of physical matter of the grape, leaving behind all the water content. And in spiritual terms, that relates to emotions and your physical life. So when you sort of take away everything that you've got of a physical nature and your emotional nature, what's left is your spirit, your mind, what you are deep down beneath all those things. Quite often your physical and emotional life aren't the real you. They're sort of boundaries you put in place to protect you in life. And sometimes you can say that's not the real you. The real you is that essence that's stored in a container. And by looking at yourselves that way and the trials you go through life, you can see the value of the allegories of winemaking or bread making, because you can see that by adding knowledge and experience to your life, it's like adding yeast to wine or to bread. It helps it rise, it helps it ferment to become and transform into something else. And spiritual knowledge, especially the knowledge of life after death, transforms a human being in a way that nothing else can. It's like the yeast added to the bread. It's knowledge and experience of the afterlife that makes you think about this life that you're having now, what you are and what you're meant to be doing with it. And people who sort of lost on the path of life, they're usually focused on material things or focused purely on their emotions, and they never quite get past that. So the idea of the allegory of the wine is to see a deeper character in yourself. And it's been proven now through genetics that pathways exist in your brain that open up when you perform certain tasks. And if you keep performing those tasks, those pathways get stronger. Those are just habits. So there's bad habits that we form that we've got to break, and good habits that we have to do just to get them going. Children, we have to teach them to say please and thank you, even though it's just how we want to be treated. But you do have to teach people. You have to teach them when they're adults as well. Gratitude is quite hard to come by sometimes. But it's being able to take a step back and see that something deeper lies in your character. And it's the trials and tribulations sent your way that's going to draw them out. But one of the things that, when I've gone over this a few times, different things sort of pop out. And going back over it for today, the thing I was drawn to is it's not so much the process of making wine into brandy. Quite often it's the containers that you store them in that's just as important. So you take that fortified wine, you take that spirit and you put it into old barrels that have contained wine before. And they impart depth of character. And we've tried other barrels, we've tried other processes, and we found one that produces the best quality. And so we've also found in our lives that a good family, a good education, good opportunities around you will bring out the depth of character in human beings. So as spiritual people, we have to provide those environments for our family and friends. We have to provide those environments for ourselves, because a toxic environment will make you sick and a healthy environment will make you well. It's as simple as that. So we can go and all have a lovely glass of wine this afternoon, maybe just one or two, and enjoy this process of life and reflect on it. But we also got to keep it in moderation because we want to stay healthy. Spiritual work is the same. If you spend 7 days a week with your head in spiritual books, you'll miss out on life. But if you just worry about life and never take time for your spirit, you'll never find that depth of character lying beneath you. You'll never even look for it if you can't get past your physical and emotional life. So that's why we're at least 1 day a week. We should always take time out, especially as a family, to just sit in the spiritual power, to allow Spirit to come close to us, to inspire us like they can do in services like this morning, and ponder on those stages in our life that we've progressed through, some of them very hard and challenging, that have had to strip away out of material and emotional values, and makes us look at the essence and the core meaning of life. And it's pretty simple. We're only here for a very short time. We only get so many seasons to enjoy. And for all the sort of spiritual knowledge out there and trying to understand these very complicated as things like astrology and tarot and all the things that kind of, they're exotic and they're interesting. Really, we were put on earth to go through the seasons, to see them change, and to learn how to adapt to our environment. You can turn water into wine really easy by irrigating a vineyard. I don't know if that's quite difficult for some people, but when I read stories about the transformational processes that we go through in different allegories, they're worth reflecting on because they help you look at the core of who you are as a spiritual being. So thank you for listening.
You've now ruined wine for me. Thank you, Steve. That was beautiful. Thank you, thank you. And really apt, because I know we've got a few wine connoisseurs here today. And you're also having lunch with a wine importer. That comes as no surprise then, does it? Beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. We now move on to our music for the day. Immortal Invisible. If you wish to sing along, please do. Just listen, read the words, whatever. During this time, Sue will be taking the collection for... Oh, shit. I'll just have to get on with it.
Unresting, unhasting, and silent. adore thee, all veiling the sight of all thy rich graces. This grace, Lord, impart. Take the veil from our faces, the vow from our hearts.
Wonderful. We now move on to that part of the service where we demonstrate the evidential mediumship which is found within the movement of spiritualism. This is a time, I always say, this is a time of tiny miracles. You know, each and every one of us here today are searching, are reaching out, and this is a time when we can actually talk with them again. We can actually hear from them again. And not as a dim and distant past memory, but a vibrant light within our lives today. So it's a very important part, but it is a part of the greater whole. As always, we will remind you, this is a three-way conversation, is it not?
Yes.
And that requires us to engage with that conversation, does it not?
Yes.
So, if... I shouldn't be running a church. Stephen should come to you. A nice clear response with a yes, no, or maybe. So,
Yes. No. Maybe.
wonderful.
Well trained.
Over to you, young man.
No, thank you. I've got used to there being something there.
Nothing to hide behind.
Like I said, it's a three-way communication, but it's a bit like, imagine all your loved ones have arrived at an airport in another country. They're all trying to phone back at the same time through one phone, and it's an old Bakelite one that hasn't worked so well. But it is what it is. I sort of see them in my mind, hear them in my mind, feel them in my being, and if I've got it wrong, it's me. If I've got it right, it's them. But they also tend to inject humour in sometimes, and I think that's what they want you to take away anyway. But I've got this lady with me, and I feel immediately like all the life zapped out of me. It's around my tummy area where it really got hold and made me very ill. And I found it difficult to speak, although I was still with it in my mind. My illness and pain made me very despondent. And although I feel like a mother, I feel like I could be a mum's mum. And I feel like I'm with the lady with the Adidas jumper on. Okay, and if this isn't mum, it feels like mum's mum. But would you understand the illness that took hold of me? And it wasn't so much like I wasn't there, I couldn't really express myself because it was all just pain. And I really didn't want to share that with everyone. It was hard knowing that everyone's watching me ill, and it was like something we just didn't want to talk about. Okay. There's a lot of emotion between you and this lady. You must have been quite close, and she's very proud of you. Okay, but she's proud because you're very gentle. She was gentle, and she's saying Mum's gentle, but she has her ways. Okay. I get the feeling that you're more like this lady than Mum is. Okay. And there's a real kinship with this lady. It feels very, almost like sisters. She looks at you very, more than just fondly. She's got this beautiful image of you in the sunshine, and that's her happy place. That's how she makes me feel. Okay. Saying you've been very studious lately and haven't had a lot of time to really enjoy fresh air, and so it's nice you're here today. Okay. It's I don't know why she's given it to me. It's Because it's a very earthly thing. She. Okay. It feels like she's saying you're shopping for cooking a meal for the first time for a while. Because normally it's just make something quick, but today it's going to be no. We're going to take our time. Does that make sense? No, but you know, like don't know, just sitting and really enjoying it, because sometimes we just eat to live, and it, you know, when it comes to family, especially grandmothers, they want to sit us down, and they've spent hours over something that's going to be finished in minutes, but it's worth it, you know. Yeah. And that's how she's making me feel, that she kind of misses that, really taking a lot of time over something just because you love the people you're doing it for. Okay. And she's making me feel like whatever it is, the study you're doing is getting you a bit hot and bothered, because it's quite overwhelming, and that's why she feels this little break, just one afternoon, just sit back, enjoy that wine actually. Okay. This lady, she's very private, because I'm going back, I need evidence, and she's like, I really can't. I was a very shy person, very private, and even if I wanted to tell you, she found it hard to speak, you know. Yeah. It's why she's kind of admires you, because had she been given the opportunities you had, she might have clammed up a little bit. So she's very impressed with anyone that takes life by the horns and gets on with it. And she said it's paying very well for you now, or will be anyway. Okay. I'm not sure what she's making my sinuses very sore and blocked up. I don't know why she's doing that, unless that's something you share with her. Okay. She must have been quite sensitive to everything, allergies and things like that. That's how she's making me feel.
Oh, I know what that is, yeah.
Okay.
We both sneeze about 10 times. We can't just do one. We do 10.
Right, okay.
It's a family thing.
Okay. Bless her. And I'm not sure why she's come so. It could be an anniversary, a birthday passing. I'm not getting much of that. It just feels she's coming in on a particular energy. She's not used to coming through, but she finds it very interesting, and I feel that she's with you so much that it's almost like you don't need to ask her to come in. She's right there. You can feel her almost. And she's showing me beautiful images of just, you know, like beautiful fabrics and all floral designs, and she loves beautiful things, and she just feels very positive about the future as well. So I'll leave her love with you. God bless you. Everything else is so well run here. I've got a gentleman coming in, very gentle as well. In fact, so this gentleman I've got, he's come in, but he wants to go to the gentleman right next to the lady there. And usually I'll go off somewhere different. But this gentleman, he feels like he's come in as a father's father figure, a very strong, quite a sturdy man, but he feels like he's got a very difficult sense of humour. Would you understand this is father's father? I'd have to watch what I say with him, because he's quite an intelligent man. He likes to play harmless but serious mind games with people. Okay, and he feels like the person who would set a rumour off just to see who would say it. Okay, yeah. He watched people very carefully. He fills me with a lot of joy. But it feels like he took a lot of. He got a lot out of humour at other people's expense. It feels. Part of it feels just for a laugh, but some of it was a little bit, you know.
Cruel.
He liked to see his, and I want to. Competition enemies wasn't enough that he was doing all right. He had to see them make mistakes. Okay. I don't feel like that with you at all. This gentleman, he's quite weird in that sense, because it's not everyday occurrence. Because he must have got away with a lot more than he should have done, and it gave him the confidence to keep going. He pushed his boundaries. Okay, it's this father's father. I just feel very toxic alpha male energy with him. He's happy with that. Okay. But he, all seriously, he's a very powerful presence, and although he might have had his ways, he really did believe in morals and a right way of doing things. But he played fast and loose when it came to him. Okay, but it does feel like he's looking back and he's thinking, no, I knew better than I did. Okay. I just feel like I don't know what it is. There's something, a discussion about morals and ethics right now for you. I don't know if it's a workplace thing. It's just the energy he's giving me.
Just within the family.
Right, okay. And it just feels like there's this discussion going on, and he's quite aware of it, but gladly he hasn't got any input. With this gentleman, I feel that if it wasn't a heart attack, he had problems with his heart, because I'm feeling these chest pains, and he's like, oh, at least I knew I had one. I'd say a lot of love, there's a lot of respect from this gentleman. He sees you in a very different light than he did before. And he's making me feel, it's very reassuring to know that not only life goes on, but you can leave your troubles behind. And I think he's very relieved at that, because he's left, you know, like I said, we pass on, we might keep our characteristics, but we can leave our flaws behind really easily, and it feels like he's kind of cleansed of all that, even though he's bringing in the humour. All I'm getting from is lots of love and luck for the future. God bless you. I feel like this lady's drawing very close to me. She's a very slight lady, very petite. She's got quite red hair, very slim. And she would have been, I feel like I'm going back to a grandmother rather than a mother. But I feel like I can be taken as quite an oddball, slightly eccentric. You know, I was a hippie before there were hippies, kind of thing. And she makes me feel very in touch with animals and nature. Okay. I'm being drawn to the lady at the back with the sort of long reddish hair. Just behind you. So, yeah. Would you recognise this lady as a grandmother, quite very slim? And when I say the hippie, you know, she just didn't fit in, but she was more in touch with nature. Would you understand that?
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
Quite Victorian maybe.
Yeah, I want to go quite far back, very old-fashioned, and just, you know, you get the old books with the crushed, dried flowers in them, and she was very, she knew what all the butterflies were and the birds, and but she feels very old school. But she also feels extremely spiritual. It's like she had to sort of come down to communicate with me, because she's very ethereal. But I get the feeling you know, the people who have to put on the rose-tinted glasses, you know, that's try and be upbeat and put a bit of sparkle on the worst possible things and bury her head in the sand a little bit. But for her, that was just the way to see life. She's like, it's just being around her. It's like you smell, everything was earthy with her, you know. Oh, bless. But she was just a very tactile lady. She liked, you know, odd stones and rocks and crystals and things like that. She's she's witchy in a good sense. She's going, I was clean. I did clean, you know. But she was a very independent lady and thinker, and she'd end up on her own a lot, thinking a lot. Not always her choice, she's saying, but you know, it was always. She just had her own way, and she couldn't be anyone if she tried. You know. But she just loved natural fabrics and natural. She's not a big eater either. I don't see her eating much. She would have been sort of pecking at little things, little and often. A fussy eater. You couldn't really take her out for a meal. And even though she's quite spiritual, I felt a slightly fearful lady, anxious, and a little bit anxious towards the end as well. So it's a great relief for her. She goes, I was right. I wasn't sure, but I was right. Okay. She makes me feel that she probably didn't drink enough water and didn't take as good care of herself that she should have done. She wasn't one for medication or doctors because they just scared her, because she was overly sensitive to anything. If it wasn't 100% natural and in small amounts, she could have a reaction to just about anything, I think. Okay. But she's such a loving lady. It's almost extremes of love. You know, she would cry so easily, I feel. Now, all she's showing me, and I don't know if you're reading a book or writing into a diary or something, but she's just very, very close to you in your thoughts, and a very inspiring lady. And I think it feels now, as a spiritual being, she can be felt, whereas she didn't know how to say the words in life. So she can actually communicate better now in feeling than she could do on the earth plane. She's looking fabulous. She's telling me, do you know what I mean? She's taking time for herself, and just she feels as beautiful as she should have done when she was on the earth, if that makes sense. So I'll leave her love with you. I know she's with you all the time, but especially whatever it is that's reading or writing, it's very close to her heart. So I'll leave that with you. I've got a gentleman blending with me, and he's quite reluctant. It just feels he's a little bit unsure in a way. He feels very fatherly, and I'm not quite sure what he's trying to get across to me, but I feel a sense of I've got an illness, and then I felt very unsure about it and very apprehensive. I was kind of a little bit scared, but being a man, I couldn't really let on, and I feel I want to come to the gentleman with the green jumper on. Okay, yeah, and I don't know, this doesn't feel so much like father, but a fatherly figure, a gentleman who got ill and just was quite anxious. Do you understand any of that so far?
The only one I can relate to is maybe my granddad.
Okay. I'm feeling more on father's side, and with this gentleman, I'd even say there's a bit of a resemblance. He would have lost a lot of his hair, and he said, "You got a nice fine head of hair." He's a bit jealous. And there's a bit of a humour with this gentleman as well. I just feel his passing. It was a bit of difficult for everyone, but especially for him because he was scared. Okay. Whatever has brought you here today, he's pleased because he would have been a little bit closed-minded, not in a bad way, but he just didn't want to be fooled, right? But he's quite glad that you kind of. It's not the first time you've been to something like this, but you've you're still mulling over in your mind what it's all about. Do you know what I mean? And he's glad you think a bit deeper than he did, because he was quite, no, I've paid the big bills, I've done this, that's all I need to worry about in life. But it was that sort of sudden realisation. I know, okay, he makes me feel like even though he was a little bit scared of what was to come, he was more worried at what his mother would have thought. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he had any reason to worry, but he was like, you know, we let our thoughts go off and sometimes they can become a little bit negative. And with this gentleman, I just feel, you know, he was so worried that he might have had a bad thought in the past, you know, and when he looked back at his life, he was actually a really decent man. You know, he just questioned himself too much. Okay, and I don't know why he's given that to me, but he probably is trying to say you probably do the same, you know. And I just feel this gentleman, this relief to be able to speak, a relief to be able to communicate and know that he's past that horrible stage of death. But it's like you must have this sense of relief. You've got through something anyway, and it is this moment to just reflect and go, okay, right, now I can start building again, that kind of feeling. It also makes me feel like he wants to say, never remove that doubt though, because that doubt is, you know, you never take things fully as people give it. Okay. He's like, it's all right to doubt because overconfidence is even worse than lack of it. But this gentleman, he's just like, I was how I was. I can't, you know. We read all this stuff about turning yourself into some superstar and you know, all these steps to greatness, and most of us aren't bothered by that, you know. And he's like, there's real great value in just enjoying the life you've got. Do you know what I mean? I think he found that. As you watch so many people torment themselves over careers and stuff, and this gentleman, he's like, why would anyone do that? You know, because he said even though he was a little bit apprehensive, he could look back on his life and just think, wow, look at everything I did do. Because really all that matters in the end is family and friends, you know. Okay. Have you moved as well? I feel like you're not in the location you've always been.
No.
Okay. He's just, because it feels to me like that's the difference between you and him. He never really felt comfortable too far away from home, but you've taken that leap and you've got used to it. He's just filling me with, he goes, new ways of thinking, new ideas, create a new world. So he's smiling because your life to him is an adventure, because his was, you know, he was of a time, it was quite limited. He knew his four walls well enough, and that was it for him. Whereas you've got this completely different life. So you must be enjoying it along the way with you. Okay. I'll leave his love with you. God bless you. Okay. I've got this I've got a gentleman with me, and I thought I was making it up. He's like a mime artist. He's doing these mimes all in the dress, which isn't really helping me very much. Okay. This gentleman, trying to get him to behave himself. He's not one of yours, is he?
Hang on a minute. Why?
He's like in this full makeup, the beret, the braces, and the slapstick humour. He's taking me towards the back, but he's playing games with me, I'm sure of it. But I'm going to try to describe him. He's quite a slim gentleman, he'd have to be a decent mime artist. And everything about him is exaggerated. I feel like he can switch this on and off, but he must have been a bit of an over-performer, and turning everything into a performance, but he actually got quite good at it. This is a very odd one. I do feel if I'm towards the back of the room there somewhere. Okay, but this gentleman, I'm trying to feel the relationship, but I feel like a very inappropriate granddad. Okay, can anyone take that? It's very specific. Right. I'm going to let him go because I would say I'll try and get a name, but I just feel fooled, really. Okay. No, this gentleman, he does want to take me to the lady at the back with the curly hair. And this gentleman, he feels very slim, wiry, but quite strong. But he's got a way of moving about him. I do feel like I'm on mum's side of the family with this gentleman, and I feel with him there's his humour, but there's a real sadness to him as well. Okay, can you take this on mum's side of the family?
Maybe, but
A dramatic.
personally,
Okay. Well, hopefully this is something you can find out and go, oh, that was good. Right. This gentleman, he it makes me feel, well, eccentric for the least of the words I could use. But it feels like a misfit just outside of the family. If you can ask Mum, there's a mime artist around there, and she says yes. Please tell the church, that'd be fantastic. Right. Okay, right.
we don't want to give you information.
No,
but
no,
yeah,
no.
just trying to-
Okay. This person's definitely a joker, but I feel like a misfit. I'm kind of outside of the family. I've gone off and done my own thing, and I don't keep touch with everyone. Okay. And I feel like I've gone abroad as well. I don't know if you've got relations across the world. Okay. But I'm going to let this joker move on and leave it at that. Yeah, God bless you. Oh well, that's a strange one.
Don't leave me. I've got enough of you.
I do have a very lovely, down-to-earth gentleman who feels very much like Dad. He's got quite fair hair, very smart. He's wearing a suit, and he's not very tall. He's a little bit shorter than I am, but he's just got this nature about him. There's something perfect about everything about him. Is the way he's got his hair combed, the way he talks. I feel like I don't want to get overblown with my sense of importance, but I'm important where I work. I'm in charge, as it were, but I'm quite. I feel more like I'm in business. I do feel like a father and drawn to the lady with the long blonde hair down to the shoulder. Yes, there. Okay. Does this sound like father? Okay. He feels like he's in charge, though. He's the head of the family. But would this be Mum's father then? Okay. And I'm very smart in suits. I wore them for work, but I somehow just look that little bit better than the suit. Gives something about me. And like the hair, he's got it. It's quite straight. It's fair, but it's always combed to one side. And although it's not Brill cream, somehow it always stays in place. And he's always never looks windswept or rushed. I feel very good at what I do. I feel like I've a sense of importance, but I think it's paid quite well as well. And I'm a very good provider. Okay. And I've got just a few gold, like a gold watch, a few rings, nothing too flashy, but they were there. Okay. And I feel like I come from quite a sort of, not a large family, but larger than life. And I was not quite like the others. I feel like if I had brothers, that they were a bit more rough and tumble and I was more focused. And I studied hard, and I studied people brilliantly. I think he didn't realise he was an expert at body language, and he didn't quite realise how intuitive he was. And I feel he's saying that because you're very similar to him. I feel that your mind and his mind are very similar. He's telling me his works one way, yours works the other, but you have the same pattern of thought. And the ability to just pick up on nuances you don't even realise you're picking up on. He's saying it made him... at one point he thought he was a psychic because he could sit at a business meeting and make decisions no one else would make, and they were always very successful. And he started to think he was psychic, and that kind of led him down a bit of an odd path. He's saying there's probably a few books he used to hide away because he didn't want people to know he was reading them. And he's making me feel sat at his desk in his study that he would ponder the universe and ponder things, but very rarely talk about it, because he was someone who had to know, otherwise he wouldn't open his mouth. And if he couldn't provide you with the correct fundamental answer to something, he didn't waste his time. No, not a man for chit-chat. But still saying that, a very pleasant man. You could approach him over anything, especially his children. Though he was strict, he was fair. He wasn't ever. He didn't have to be stern with it. But he was a bit old school, and he expected mum to discipline the children. Because he had to have time to think and be present. He's given me books. I feel he was an avid reader, but you've been an avid reader, but I feel like I'm on a different path. I'm not reading so much anymore. I'm just experiencing things. And he feels that you've found this sort of he's going, life's become a bit more airy for you and a little bit less bogged down in seriousness, because just seeing life in a much lighter way. He's looking at his watch and he's saying your timekeeping's gone out the window because you don't go by time anymore. You go by what you need to do, and it's quite liberating. Because he's saying in today's age you arrive early for something and everyone's late anyway. He was a stickler for timekeeping, though. I think I get the feeling it was a little bit, 1 second late was too late in his book. Whereas you've just had to accept that people turn up minimum 45 minutes after they said they would. Well, I take it this is the younger generation, and they kind of forget that you've got a timetable as well, but that's gone out the window now. So this is an odd one. I've got an image. I don't know if you've got a light shining through a bedroom window that's irritating you, like a street light.
Yes.
Yeah. He's obviously aware of that. I'm not sure what he can do about it, but if it starts flickering, that's him. I don't feel much more coming from the gentleman. Just a lot of love, a lot of time to contemplate now. And again, it feels very much like, even though he's a very learned man, he's still learning, and you're learning a lot. I mean, I'll take it you're reading some pretty deep material at times. Well, you draw to Rudolf Steiner and anthroposophy, right? This gentleman would have been very interested in that had he taken the time. I feel he probably did in the past, but he kept it a little bit more hush-hush. He says that's mostly because he still hadn't quite arrived at his own philosophy yet, and he's still searching now. I'll leave his love with you. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Now move on for the notices for the week. Wednesday, the 1st of March. How did that happen? At 3 o'clock we have a healing hour, and the first Wednesday of each month we invite in a guest. We have Kevin Beeks with us, who will be talking about shamanic healing. That's this Wednesday at 3 o'clock, and that's followed by healing from the Church Registered Healers. In the evening we have our awareness night, where we invite guests in to talk about matters appertaining to spiritualism. It's a really good night to come in and learn more about spiritualism. Each guest will be talking about one topic, but obviously we will be engaging in conversation and debate with those within. This month we've got David Powell, and he'll be talking about the purpose of the evidential message within our movement. Next Sunday at 11 o'clock we have Phyllis Rumney back with us. We are having a trip to the Arthur Findlay College, Stansted Hall, which is the home of the SNU Medium College. That's on the 29th of April. Tickets are still available, but they are going very well, so thank you all who has already bought. But if you are thinking about it, maybe it's time to commit and do it. So details are available. Next month's newsletter is also available now out in the hall. And if you wish to keep up to date with what's going on at your church, I'd suggest you visit the website, because that is the main port of call with links to go through all our social media and everything. Charlotte, I've got to mention you. Thank you so much for bringing your lovely daughter along with you today, our newest member of the congregation. Anybody wants to cuddle, please form an orderly queue at the end of the service. It's £5 a cuddle and goes to church funds. All right. So, Charlotte, absolutely beautiful. Thank you, darling. She's better behaved than some of the older ones. Not looking at anybody. Ted. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Stephen, sir, if I could invite you for the closing blessing. Thank you.
Divine and gracious Spirit, we thank you for bringing all these souls together this morning, to offer us a time to commune with the spirit world, to allow our loved ones close to us to inspire us, give us evidence of their survival, and to show us a beautiful world before us, where this spiritual knowledge and truth becomes commonplace in everyone's hearts. Amen.
Amen. Stephen, thank you so much. I'm so pleased that your journey down here went without a hitch, because sometimes our roads are a bit of a nightmare. Lovely seeing you working. Everybody here, thank you so much for coming. As I always say, the sun's out, go out, get in touch with nature a bit, have a bit of fresh air, walk by, you've got the lake down the road, the sea down the other side. Make time for you. We're always busy looking after everybody else. Today you have everybody's permission to make time for you. Enjoy the day. Thank you. Lovely.
Yes, please.